Hey, Glenn Denman here, working on the bus again today, and of course, what else would I be doing but working on the bus? Anyway, so I picked up a file cabinet, an old metal file cabinet from a junkyard, and I paid 10 bucks for it. So I've taken the drawers out of it, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the side out of it. I'm going to block the end in here where the doors were, and I'm going to cut an opening in the side so I have a nice double door set up here that I can open, and this will be the container inside the bay that I put my my two 7-gallon propane tanks in. So that way I can mount it in there, have its own doors independent of the bay door, and then I can put put a hole in the bottom so I can ventilate the compartment, and my regulator will be inside, and my two propane tanks will be inside. They'll sit side by side to each other. So that file cabinet just so happens that it fits right in the spot that I planned right here. So it'll set right between the wastewater tank and the side of the bay here, ahead of this door, so it won't obstruct this door. It'll sit almost right to the door, and it fits right between this door bracket, lock bracket, and right in between here and right on this footprint right here, and it'll come up to about this high in the bay. And so I'll have double doors here that I can open up and access my propane tanks. The idea there is that I've got the tanks sitting in this bay, and a friend of mine had his pressure regulator, similar to this assembly here. His regulator actually malfunctioned in his, actually it was just a camper, and it was spewing out propane at a pretty good rate. So I obviously wouldn't want propane just to fill up inside this bay, because I don't want to ventilate the entire bay. I could ventilate the entire bay, put holes through the floor and things like that, but I don't want to do that because I've got other things in here that I want to be able to control a little bit of the temperature there. So that way I can just put a vent right through the floor inside the container, seal the container, and it'll just be a little bit bigger than the two tanks themselves. I've already got my gas line coming down here through the floor. It's ready to come over and pipe into this thing. Actually, I'd already ran that before I even planned on buying this file cabinet, and but I went ahead and picked it up without really knowing for sure if it was going to work. And so I got it home and I fitted it in here, and it sits right in here just exactly perfect the way I want it, and I only paid 10 bucks for it, so I figured I was doing pretty good with that. So with that, I'll have two tanks side by side. This will be my valve that I can, either run one tank or the other, or both, I guess. But then you can, with this valve, you can take one tank out, have it filled, the other one still functioning, and things like that. So that's going to be my project here, is altering this file cabinet into a propane tank compartment. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I've got these aluminum sheets that were left over from the storage bays up above. Most of that aluminum, I recycled it back in the day when I took all that stuff out. But I saved just a few sheets because sheet aluminum is kind of nice to have around. I've got a few other pieces laying around here. Matter of fact, I've got so much stuff around here, I've got too much stuff. But anyway, I'm gonna take this one piece here and cut it down. I'm going to fasten it onto the end here because this end won't be useful to me at all. So I took the drawers out, and I'm going to go ahead and just cover this with sheet metal with this aluminum here just to close it off. So I'm going to work on this, and hopefully that'll work out for my propane tank. So okay, so I'm working on this file cabinet still, and I've got it pretty much laid out how I want it. I'm going to go ahead and fasten this piece of aluminum onto the end of it here, and but first, before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and cut the side open. Okay, so I've got this down to a point now where I figured I'd go ahead and put it on the video. You know, some of these things that, these projects, they're kind of spread out in time and stuff, and it's hard to really just have a chronological video of everything. But what I've got going here on this box so far now is I've cut the opening out here, of course, and so I know I needed to do something with the opening itself to line it with something that I could maybe have a door on it, that's a smooth surface that'll seal to, and a surface that is rigid, because this box is really pretty thin sheet metal. So what I did is I took some 1" by 1" material, which I'll show you here. This is some leftover stuff from a project from years ago. And so I took this 1 by 1 aluminum tube and I put it under all the edges, all the way around. The two on the sides go all the way from the top to the bottom, and then the ones in between just fit in between. And so I had this aluminum angle material here left over from something. So basically what I've done here is I put silicone on everything, and then I was able to take and sandwich the sheet metal of the box in between the 1 by 1 aluminum and the steel, or in between that and the aluminum. So basically this is the final piece that's going on. I've got the silicone up inside, and that just keeps the silicone really, it just keeps things from rattling and working itself loose after a while. It's not actually holding anything together, but it just keeps it tight. And believe me, if you tried to disassemble this thing later, that silicone would be a real problem. So there might be some other products that you could use that would work even better, like maybe some 3M 5200 or something like that. But for what I'm doing here, this is going to be inside the compartment. So it's really just to stabilize things so it's not so tinny. So basically, so this piece here will go on here, just to kind of finish this off. This will give me a nice perimeter for this doorway. So now I'll be able to fasten screws through here, and then that silicone will dry in there, and that way I have a smooth surface on top that I can build a door to seal to it. I don't really know how I'm going to do that just yet, except that for a hinge, I've got this this hinge here. This hinge is from the destination sign cabinet or box that was up there. Of course, as you could see in my previous video, or my other video, I should say, on the the installation of the mini split, I went ahead and took that big destination sign box door and cut a big section out of the middle of it and put the two sides back up on each side of the AC unit. That way I'd at least have that covered up for now until I decide what I'm going to do with that. So, but the rest of the hinge is here from that middle section of that door. And it's really a pretty nice hinge the way it works here. So basically this hinge, I haven't cut it yet, but I figure I can mount it inside here, and this can work as a good door. And I decided also to not have the door open upwards, so you're having to have the door sitting on top of your head while you're working on the tanks. I went ahead and I'm going to go ahead and just do a side hinge door. And I don't even know what I'm going to make the door out of yet, so it's kind of a work in progress. But basically, I just wanted to show for now how I lined the opening. So I'll go ahead and put that last piece in. So the 1 by 1 tubing that I have up inside here, it's also glued in place, and then this is gluing. So basically the glue is sandwiching the steel between the 1 by 1 aluminum and then the 1 by 1 angle material. And then I'm just going to put some screws in the face here. That way I have a nice smooth surface area for my eventual door. So basically what I do here is I go ahead and kind of clamp this in place before I put the screws on. go ahead and just put those screws in. So by the time I put my door on here, it'll swing all the way open like so. So 22 3/16. So basically it'll sit in here like so, in between there, and then that'll hinge up and down. And so the way that is there is I've got enough space in between here that I can make a door that'll fit in between. So when I close it, it'll just close right down on top of that face there. And so then the door itself will actually be under this piece. Got this old latch mechanism here from the wheelchair door, or from the wheelchair lift, and I could probably make something out of this. I saved all this stuff here, you know, when I took the bus apart. And what I did here is I went ahead and took the pin out, reversed it, put the pin back in. So I might be able to make something here where to mount to the door, and it'll come down and latch there, and then you just pull that out and have a nice door latch. So, you know, it's not that I couldn't go buy a door latch. I just like doing things with stuff that I already have, because it just kind of makes it more fun. Again, just keeps that hinge from moving around. It's kind of a design as you go. I figured just show kind of a close-up of that. So that hinge should work pretty good. So basically I just have to build something here that'll fit in between, maybe some 3/8" plywood, or I don't know yet, or even if I just make something out of sheet metal, and then I can put some kind of thick gasket on it where it'll close down and it'll sandwich in between there. Not that I'm trying to get it completely airtight, but at least if there is a leak inside this box, it'll go down through the floor for the most part. So that's the goal. Anyway, I'll take it out and see how it fits. Okay, so I'm out here at the bus, and it's a little bit windy out here, and I apologize for that. But I've got this box built, and it's sitting in place here pretty much. I've just got it just sitting here right now. And so with this floor in here, I've got this carpeted floor, and it's got aluminum, you know, it's glued to the aluminum plus the insulation, and then you got the floor itself under that. So basically what I'm thinking about doing is going ahead and just screwing this cabinet down to the floor, and I'll probably even screw it to this wall here as well, just to give it some stability so it's not rocking. And then I'm probably just going to put just a small piece of carpet inside here on top of this to set the tanks on. That way they're cushioned and they won't move around. Of course, I'll have to, you know, put them in so that they're held down tight to the floor. But that way they don't just bounce around on the bottom. So in other words, it's not just metal to metal or whatever. And so I'll probably do something like that. Okay, so I've got quite a ways here on this propane setup here. So basically I've got this box in here, and I've got one tank just setting in here for now. The You can see I've got my switch over device up in here, and it's hard piped up through the lid, and I'll make the final connection up there above the box later. So basically what I've got here is I've got this threaded rod going all the way down through the floor of the bus, and it's coming out under there. And so basically that's going to hold down these tanks. And so I've made this piece out of aluminum here, and this will set on top of the tank, and then a wing nut will hold that down to hold both tanks down. And this just connects right on here, really smooth, and this thing just came out spectacular. So I went ahead and just put a piece of OSB in the bottom here, screws in the corner. I mean, I can always change it later, but I think it's going to be just fine. Materials I already had. Of course, I haven't got a door yet, but that will come later. But for now, I'll be able to completely set these tanks in place, and I'll make one final video on that. Okay, so I've got the tanks pretty much in. I still got to do some final pressure testing and stuff like that, but I've got them just hooked up here temporary. And so that's my nifty little hold down there, a piece of 1-inch aluminum. It's actually about 3/16 wall. It's a square tube, and it's notched so that it fits over the edge of the tanks, over the rim there. And then just a wing nut on there, and then this, of course, this rod goes all the way down through the floor. And then I also added a vent here through the floor, you can see there, and I put some expanded metal over it. I went ahead and just put 2 pieces on top of each other there. And so I'll probably do some other modifications to this thing, but of course I still need to put my door on. But one thing that I don't really care for is the tinny character of the sheet metal. It just sounds too soft, or too oil canny. So I'll probably put some wood on that, at least on that back side. I could even do that from the other side for that matter. Or next time I have the tanks out, I can just cut a piece of wood and stick it in there. But for now, at least I've got it to this point, and I think it's going to work really good. So one thing I like about this setup here, anyway, I really didn't show a good scene of how this is overall. So this is in the final bay, or the last bay of the bus. And so these tanks, the way they're sitting in here with this ready rod going down through the floor and the wing nut and all that stuff, is these tanks are fastened to the floor independent of this box. So if the tanks move around a little bit, the box doesn't move, or if the box moves a little bit, the tanks don't move with it. So it's completely independent. The box really is just creating an enclosure, and hopefully once I get a good door on here with a gasket on it, something that opens easy. These tanks are supposed to be technically readily accessible, and so it'd be pretty easy to get into this thing. So I really like the way this install came out here. So okay, so I'm just finishing up this video on installing the propane tanks in this file cabinet that I converted into a propane tank compartment. I was able to pick up a piece of aluminum here, which is about 1/8 of an inch thick. It's pretty nice piece. Actually, I got it at the local junk shop, and I was able to just cut it in half, and it was already the right width the other way. And so I went ahead and bolted it on to the hinge here. And remember, this is the hinge from the overhead destination sign at the front, where I took that out and then put in the air conditioning unit. So I was able to save that hinge. So I've got this hinge, or this door in here, and I'm going to go ahead and put some gasket on here, and that way it'll have a nice soft close, and it'll be pretty much airtight. It won't be 100%, but it'll be pretty good. I've got this latch here that I'm going to build on here, and then so it has a bevel on it like a regular door latch. And so I'm going to go ahead and modify this latch to fit on the door. And I've got this piece here that I'm going to use as a receiver for that, and that'll be bolted on. So I'm going to go ahead and install that stuff and get this project buttoned up so I can move on to bigger and better things. See about going ahead and using both of these pieces here. You can spread them, you can split them apart and get just one, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and just go ahead and double that up in there and install that. If you can see that. Anyway, so it'll be double width all the way around, down and across. I think that'll work pretty good. Actually, I think what I'll do is I'll actually put the gasket on the door itself and not on this, because this would easily get tore up. At least when the door's open, it's out of the way. When I'm putting the bottles in and out, I'm not going to damage the gasket, hopefully. Just about right. This piece I already had, it's some piece that came out of the bus at some point. Went ahead and drilled a hole in here to be the receiver hole for the latch. So I'm going to go ahead and drill the holes through the side of the cabinet here that'll line up with these grooves that were already in it. May as well just do that. Seems like a good thing to do. All these bolts are stainless steel bolts with stainless steel nylock nuts. Not that they have to be, but just a lot of the stuff I've been assembling, I've used stainless steel on. Seems to be the way to go. It's a little tight. I think after a while that rubber gasket will loosen up a little bit. This I can bring back this way a little bit. So there we have it. So basically that'll conclude the install of the propane tank compartment. I really like the way it came out. And so basically I've got my door latch here that again I'll need to do a little adjusting on. That came off the wheelchair assembly. I actually have two of them. I don't remember exactly how they functioned at the time, but I always save that kind of stuff when I take stuff apart on the bus. So I've got that installed. I got my door gasket on, and so I've got these tanks installed in here. I've got all my piping up above connected. Got my regulator in here. I can switch tanks one side to the other. Then I've got the two bottles here, and then here's the device that I made with the ready rod that goes all the way down through the floor, bolts it down tight. They slide right in and out of here really nicely, and so I'm really pleased with how this this whole propane setup came out. With these, I can have these two tanks in here. I can store two more full tanks if I want. Plus, you can always take the bus down, or I mean, you don't have to take the whole bus down to fill it up. It's easier just to be able to take your tanks out and put them in there already full. And so I think this is going to work pretty well. So that pretty much concludes the propane compartment for the bus. It's in the final bay here, and this video's been in a long time making. Actually, it's been a couple of weeks since I finally got the door here to install, but I think it came out pretty good. So I hope everybody likes it, and I certainly do. And take care of yourselves. Thanks for watching.